as a class, we're going to turn this photograph of the Louisiana State Capitol or another Baton Rouge landmark, depending on which class you're in, into a drawing. And we're going to do this by everybody doing one little piece of a grid square. So on the back of a photo, I took a ruler and I measured 1-inch blocks. I labeled each of these 1-inch blocks with a little code for which picture it was from, and also with a letter and number. That's so that we can reassemble all of our squares into the completed drawing when we're done. This is really important. Before you start, look on the back of your square, look at the letter and the number, write that on the back of your blank square. So this is G4. If you forget to do this, it's going to be really hard to put this puzzle back together when we have everybody's squares at the end. There's also a little letter code on the bottom left-hand corner. This is an S. That tells me which of the puzzles it's from because each of my art classes is doing a different image. So that helps me too, and you can also write your name so I can give you credit for it. Nobody will see this. They'll be glued on the final puzzle. But that way, if I need to ask you to fix something, I know who to go to. So I'm going to demo two pieces of this Louisiana State Capitol artwork. So this first piece, this puzzle piece, I-5, is from the bottom of this state capitol. I'd match up this little white thing right here. And this is where my puzzle piece originally came out of. Then I'm going to do a second piece that's from around the doorway of the state capitol. So here's my puzzle piece from this part, G4. Okay, so when I originally cut these photos up, they were 6 inches by 9 inches. Our completed drawing as a class that we're going to assemble is 12 inches by 18 inches. So I had to take a 1-inch square, a 1-inch by 1-inch square, and blow it up to a 2-inch by 2-inch square. So when you do your drawing, you're going to take your little puzzle piece and you're going to enlarge it. And it's going to be double the size from when you got it by the time you finish. So you're going to start by keeping those proportions. So you're going to look really closely, observe what's in your square. You might not know where the top or bottom is. It can give you a clue on the back where you're looking at that grid number, and you can make sure that's right side up. But it doesn't really matter because we'll figure out which way it goes when we put it in the puzzle. So I see on this square, if I start over on the right side of my original square, about, it looks like maybe a quarter of the way down, I see the top line of that right angle. I'm going to start sketching that out. I see a dark area right here. Around that, I noticed some details, some architectural work. This is a doorway, but it doesn't really matter if I know what it is or not. I'm going to try to get my lines straight as I can. I could even use a ruler or the edge of a paper to make that straighter. Then I notice looks like a shadow here. And I notice that this shadow starts about halfway through the top of my little square. So I'm going to mark about halfway through my big square because I'm trying to keep those proportions so that our final class drawing goes together in a similar way. So now I'm tracing out and enlarging that shadow there. Okay, then a little bit over from that, maybe about a third. If I divide that into thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Right here, this line comes down. It's the other edge of the shadow. Here we go. And then I see a little rectangle. This rectangle goes almost half the way up this side. So let me draw that in. And right now I'm just trying to get the lines in. I can really color it in later. I'm just reminding myself what's dark and what's light here. And then I see another shadow, kind of makes a triangle. It goes above this rectangle and maybe about a third of the way up the square. So estimating and using your fractions is going to be really important for making all the puzzle pieces fit and making the final image make sense. Then I see a little square that touches the top right here, and I see another little square kind of over here. Okay, so now I've got my basic shapes in, and I can take a black color pencil and I can start to color it. So remember, this is a final product artwork that our whole class is producing together. I don't want you to be done with this in 3 or 5 minutes. I want you to really take your time. So when you're coloring it, use those colored pencils, push hard, use short strokes to fill in the area so that we're not seeing all your pencil marks and it doesn't look like you scribbled. Because the more precise each of us is with our square, the better our final product is going to be. Alright, so I think that now I've included all the details, so I'm just going to double check and look very closely at my tiny square, and I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I'm also double checking that the edges of my grid square are going to be able to match up with the next person's grid square. So I see one thing I missed was that this shadow on the left comes all the way up to the top, and I didn't color it all the way up to the top, so I'm going to add a little bit of a dark line in there to represent that. And now I'm gonna darken in this angle that I see, darken in these windows or details, whatever they are. I see a little detail at the bottom that I forgot to include, and I see a little detail right by the edge of this line I forgot to include. So be very observant. Look at each part slowly. Like I noticed there's a line here about a quarter of the way up, a faint line. There's a faint line here, and then there's a couple more shadows. And then when you think you've got all the details in there that you can, then you can be done. Make sure that you don't separate the front of this puzzle piece from the back. If it starts peeling because they're glued together and the glue stick wasn't too great, just ask for a piece of tape and glue it back together so we can use it again, because we really need the number code to be able to put the final puzzle back together. And that's it. If you got a simple design, ask for another one and I will be happy to give you a second square. Ooh, last thing, and then I promise you can start and I'll stop talking. If you have a square like this where there's a black edge, it could be up to like half of the grid square, I want you to draw that in. That's because in order to make the proportions right, to go up from the 1 inch square to the 2 inch square and to keep it in by proportion, so our final puzzle is 12 by 18, I had to add a border around some of the photos. And so if you have black, like this black part on my grid square goes about halfway up the square. So on the big version, the 2 inch version, I'm just going to draw black. There we go. That was blue. We're going to pretend it's black because I don't know where the black went. And I actually want you to color in half of the square to be black to match that. Just do it neatly. And then above that, you'll mark out, your landmarks. Like I see this little dome shape, this white area right here, making it twice as big as the original. And then I'd add in all my different colors of greens and the shadows, and I'd finish it out like that. But since the bottom's black on here, make the bottom black on your copy, even though I showed you blue. Do what I say, not what I do. Okay, I'm done talking. You can start.